This is Katie Elizabeth, and although I will be addressing the topic of a prophet, I really feel like I'm on my soapbox. You know, America is so divided. We're divided politically, racially, religiously. We're certainly divided economically by our wealth as well as our income status, because for some that's different, you know. And then there's education. And this still really, it only scratches the surface of all of our divisions, but what's really concerning me right now is this political and racial division, because people are dying. And that is scary. That is scary. The political division has intensified, as has this racial division. And maybe it's so scary to me because not only are people dying, but I feel like there's absolutely nothing I can do. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I pray. But I don't know where to start. I pray for all involved. The religious division, on the other hand, has gone on, nothing new under the sun. But in all honesty, it's just become pretty annoying once again. Rather than coming together in truth, we're choosing to fragment over opinions and extraneous details. There are a few folks that you can tune into and actually hear scripture taught. For the most part, it's opinions or it's extra information and details. We've got to get scripture applying to us. That's what we've got to do. Now, as of late, my pet peeve in these exchanges and differences is the accusation that posting or sharing negative information is either unsubstantiated, gossip, or for the HRM and Messianics, Lashon Hara is like the new word. As for the terms gossip and Lashon Hara, first and foremost, if it's general information, I think calling it gossip is a judgmental stretch. I'm sure folks will disagree, and please feel free to do so. Voicing a dissent with the views of a person who has chosen to put themselves out front, either in these campaigns or even by writing an article. When I write a blog, I open myself up to a difference of an opinion. That's the way it is. But that doesn't make it gossip. Headlines are public domain. Headlines are headlines because they want people to read them. So sharing one doesn't necessarily make you part of a problem, or certainly not gossip. We're not talking copyright issues here, but topic and content. If I post a link with an article I agree with, or accompany the post with a dissenting comment, it's not necessarily gossip or evil tongue. I look at it more as a First Amendment issue, which we don't want to lose. It's like politically they're after the Second Amendment. It's like we really don't want the religious folks after the First Amendment. Come on. There's enough people on all this. But I will say a lot of these things may not be a good use of time. I will concede to that. So moving right along. As a minister who has been called to stand in the gap on behalf of the land, this servant is watching the headlines, interceding, and doing my best to sound the warning. Some thank me, while others consider me a rabble-rouser, or conspiracy theorist, or, an amateur. And I've even been kindly warned about fear-mongering. Probably the reality is, for the most part, I'm just considered irrelevant. But since I participated in internet journalism for some time now, I've become a bit more jaded, I admit that. But rather than just sit back and name-call mainstream media, They call it lamestream media. I don't like that. I make it a point to link and reference alternative sources and sites. And I mentioned I don't like the name calling or the name changing, but to me it sounds kind of like third grade bullying on the playground. But that's a rant for another day. I continue to shake my head in astonishment at the voices who proclaim distrust of mainstream media, yet disregard and openly display a disregard for the alternative sources. Now, there are satire sites and spoof sites, and at the Goshen Gazette, we try to keep a list of those, although it's ever growing. But there are some really legitimate, sound alternative news sites, sources as well. Now, this gets me to my actual point here. And I said there's going to be a prophet mentioned. I'm going to talk about Jeremiah for just a minute. You know, Jeremiah had plenty of negative things to say. Oh my. Not just in the book of Jeremiah, but read Lamentations. Lots of negativity. And he pointed a finger on more than one occasion. The accepted sources, and resources, they expressed a completely different perspective than what Jeremiah was saying. There's no indication that a mainstream source was sounding the warning of the approaching Babylonian army. So if Jeremiah were here today, would he be accused of gossip, fear-mongering, or just lacking a mainstream resource? This is K.D. Elizabeth.